Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and also special welcome to this session. I will not go ahead without recognizing the dignitaries that are here present. As Mabe Botani has mentioned, my name is Nixon Zamini, and I'll be chairing this session. The title of the session is Ensuring Safety and Security of Infrastructure in Rolling Stock. So I have been, unfortunately I can't see the stop clock now, but the time is ticking. So I'll go straight into the topic. But just a bit of context. The topic of safety and security of infrastructure, rolling stock, and operations is quite important, as we are all aware. Just to put a bit of, just to put some figures so that we understand where we come from. The latest stats, this is from the rail safety regulator. I think this came out a few hours ago today. Actually highlights that the incidents, which can either be security incident or safety incidents on railways, 20% of that are related to safety and 80% is security. So this is just using a piece of information which is closer home in South Africa. So that covers all the railway bodies, so that will be GMA, it will be PROSA, it will be Transnet, and so on. So here I have a group of, I have a set of panelists, and what I will do is just ask them a number of questions, just to maybe talk around this issue of safety and security in rolling stock, infrastructure, and railway operations. So I will start with infrastructure. We have TFR. So the first question would be, as infrastructure owner, what are the safety issues that sort of keep you awake at night?
Is that on? Thanks, Mr. Dlamini, for the question, and good afternoon to all the delegates that are here today. From an infrastructure perspective, there are a couple of safety issues that we're currently having, and those are the ones that are leading to derailments. So derailments are caused by various problems we're having. It could be material issues, it could be human issues, and it can also be operational issues. However, there are technologies that we do have in place to assist us with these problems that we're having. I'm just going to give a few technologies that we're currently having for condition-based monitoring. For example, we have a lot of rail brakes. However, we have what we call ultrasonic detectors that are able to detect any crack or deleterious defects in our materials. I think it was yesterday when they mentioned continuous welded rails as well, to say we have buckling. However, we also have systems in place, such as sensors that we are currently using for detections of the system. So in as much as we are aware of the problems that we're currently having, we still do have technologies and we still do have interventions that we are currently doing. In addition, I don't want to only mention technologies, but I want to mention standards and procedures. So we do have preventative maintenance standards that we use basically to be able to do audits, to be able to test these systems. So those are the things we have in place, in as much as we have derailments, but we have preventative issues that we can, or preventative tools that we are currently using to sort out these problems. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Doctor. Is it okay if I call you Doctor? Maybe if I can pose the same question to you, sir. The infrastructure issues, what are the safety concerns that you have that keep you awake at night?
Good afternoon, Mr. Dangili, and good afternoon to the delegates. Warm greetings to all of you. Yeah, maybe I would attempt to answer your question, from the rolling stock perspective before we get to the infrastructure. Maybe also with the infrastructure side. I think what is dominant in South Africa currently is the issues around vandalism, cable theft, and everything that relates to that. What we see, which is really keeping us awake, even in the high yield corridors, corridors like the North Corridor, where we move our coal, is issues around the cable theft. Not only that, also the overhead cables and the signaling cables that we actually will keep us awake at night, because vandalism is actually quite high in those areas. So when we talk about the signaling equipment being stolen, that then introduces a safety risk in the system where there's then manual authorization of trains. That's the safety risk first and foremost. And above that, it also eats up in terms of the cycle time that you need to traverse in section. In some areas, you can traverse in 3 hours if all the signaling equipment are operational. But in some instances where there's manual authorization of trains, that time can be doubled, which is then eats up your resources, your crew time runs, they run up, and also you find yourself needing more rolling stock to operate. Whereas if you can just address the issues relating to those kind of incidents, we will then be able to traverse and in the design safety times. Thanks.
Thank you for that submission. Maybe I could just go to Mr. Jones, CFO.
Good afternoon, and thank you. In CVM, I think so, the problem is the same in the region. But if you go in detail in CVM side, we find that the main issue of our problems related to the safety, security, first of all, is from permanent wear effects. The second is rolling stock, and the third one is human errors. As you know, in CVM, this will be the next stage. We are looking for a signal of our level, but before we don't have that, so we are having some problem in human errors. What are we doing in CVM? All our railway lines in CVM have been upgraded, consist of concrete sleeper, 45, 54 kg rails, and all lines are continuously or long welded rails. So to cater the problems we're having with the problem of permanent wear. And I think so many companies, some companies are here, they know that CVM, because we are running the very old rolling stock wagons, now we are buying new rolling stock to pack those old ones, which cause us problems. In terms of human errors, we are concentrated in opening our old schools for refreshment of our staff and to for the newcomers also to teach. And final, because the time is very short, I just want to inform the colleagues here that CPM, by end of this year, we are going to implement the SARA safety standards. Have been approved by our government, so we are going. That one will help us to cut all these problems we are having. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CFM. I think how can I put it? It seems like we, because the way that I structured the questions, I know that we look at rolling stock, infrastructure first, and then rolling stock. But it is okay if you feel that the rolling stock is probably one of the biggest problems, and you're free to say that. Now, just looking at the responses that I've had so far, it's like you have on the safety side, you've mentioned derailments, mentioned standards and audits, mentioned human error, but also there's interventions that you have mentioned, and these are upgrading the infrastructure to a certain standard. So I know, Mr. Jones, you've said a permanent way. So there's always that debate: who is responsible for the derailment, for the unsafe events? Usually it's like, oh, it's because your rolling stock, your wheel flanges, were worn. So that's why the train couldn't negotiate through the turnout, and vice versa. So there's always that. Can anybody maybe I can go forward? Is it cross on me? Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's not a person actually, it's LATRA, the Land Transport Regulatory Authority in Tanzania. Right. They're the sole large organization, regulatory authority in Tanzania, which is in charge of road and railways, but specifically for the railways. If I talk in terms of perspective for regulatory issues, the security and safety of railways depend on the commitment of the organizations. The rail operators need to commit themselves in terms of safety management system, upgrading it, putting it into place, and then you implement the safety management system. The safety management system is a challenge to our region, especially if I take the case of Tanzania Railways, with SARA. Now we are constructing the SGR, which will need more input in terms of technology. As this morning they was talking about the ETCS control system. For us, we have adopted the ETCS level 2. So I was very much happy to see the region now is going to upgrade in terms of the control system. Because one of the contributory factor, which is a critical component for the rail operators, is the communication system, the signaling system. Is all of the region, they are outdated, obsolete technology. So we need to keep up now into the new technology so that we can address the challenge. Most people, they run to say the accidents or whatever the occurrences in the unsafe act are mostly coming from the human error. But can the human error be developed by itself? No. You need to put up the human capital. You need to put up the equipment in a good manner. You need to upgrade the infrastructure so that you reduce the amount of occurrences. So in the perspective of regulatory issues, we always keep on saying the railroad operators must put up the technology, put up the human capital in terms of the technology, then keep the SMS, the safety management system, update so that you don't regret whatever you are earning, because occurrences are the parasites of your inputs in terms of production. Thank you.
Thank you for the input. So it is quite interesting because I'm sort of slowly going into the regulatory intervention because I've heard operators, infrastructure owners, and so on. So how do you, as a regulator, avoid a situation where there's no control, there's no acceptance of liability? How do we ensure that that happens? So over to you, Marasai.
Thank you, Dr. Mini. Greetings to all delegates, and allow me to just say that. My name is Reginald. I'm from the Railway Safety Regulator. I'm going to respond to the question from the regulatory point of view. I'm not going to move directly to the liability question, and I'll deal with it at the end. But how we approach our regulation and our environment, we look at the railway environment as a system. So that is why I'm not going to just the structure that we use called the scenario. So then the foundation of how we regulate is the SMS, which is your safety management system. So for us, it's important that the safety management system that the operators put together is robust. It considers the risks, all the risks, from the various aspects of the railway system. For your infrastructure, all is related to infrastructure and the interventions that are made. So when we assess, when we do inspections, when we monitor and enforce compliance, it's on the basis of that robust SMS that now, with regards to accountability, with regards to if things go, if there's an occurrence, for example, we do have an instrument that is that we use to regulate the space. We've got a regulation that deals with reporting of identified occurrences, and it also deals with investigations, which deals with what needs to be done in the case of occurrence. So I think the bottom line, the occurrence investigation must tell us the cause of the problem. From our side, it's more important to deal with the cause of the problem. In years of the occurrence investigation, you will be able to pick up is responsible, who's like. So we can't just let the occurrence of the occurrence and immediately it happens assign it. We have to go into the nitty-gritties investigation so that we can get to the root cause. And if we deal with the root causes of the things that happen, we're able to then introduce the interventions that my colleagues have spoken about, and whether it's corrective and maybe going forward with the interventions. That means that's one side.
Thank you very much. So there is now another component. So from the regulatory side of things, you've introduced the concept of root cause analysis. So I really don't want to put you on the spot here, but what do you say are the most common bit of input question, maybe lateral? When you carry out your root cause analysis, what sort of what are the most common problems? Is it human factor? Is it human issues? Or is it technology failing? Is it so? What would you say? What basket do you say is quicker than the rest of the other factors?
Thank you, Chairman. During the root cause analysis, there are several methods that you can employ. The most common one, you find one. Then you strip down until when you get the root cause of the issues that you are looking at. But mostly you are looking at the system perspective instead of looking for the issues around which the incidents or rather the occurrence happened. So mostly from the experience in the perspective of the networks that we are always investigating, most common, the leading factor, it is the human error. Then follows with the infrastructure. The third one is the rolling stock. And then last not least is the technology adoption. Because most of the areas where you adopt the new technology, the operators tend to forget to empower their human capital. They don't train people with the new technology. Unless when they get an occurrence, then they come out to say, oh, you remember the manual of this book? But before, they don't even read the manual. They don't even train people. They think that training is part and parcel of consuming the money. But in fact, you need to equip a person, the training first, then to be equipped with how to use the equipment properly, so that you avoid more many occurrences which will eat your money instead of putting out the plan. So the leading is the human factor, because you know the human error is always very difficult and challenging thing. Because if you don't maintain your rolling stock, it's human errors. Provided that you have all the spares, you have everything, it's a human error. If you have a trained driver, a locomotive driver, failing to manipulate property in the terrain where it's supposed to do, then that's another human error. You have the speed limits in terms of speed restrictions. This is very common in the region. Every railway has speed restrictions around areas. So the human error perspective is a bit challenging. But you can extract to say, no, this system was developed.
So in a nutshell, what we can say, we can have a Rolls Royce of a railway. So we can have the right technology, upgraded infrastructure, good rolling stock, but the bottom line, well, the main elephant in the room, as I can say, is investment in human capital. So that for me is quite important, because then it says that we are getting all these issues of safety in how we run our railways. It's just because we don't equip our people, train our people, or maybe for share the information. The doctor, sorry. But, so you mentioned that the standards and guidelines and so on that go hand in hand with how you maintain your infrastructure and your rolling stock and so on. But even if those manuals, as Matra said, if those manuals people don't even understand, and I must say, I mean, to bring it closer home, when we started out in railway, we were all given railway manuals. Now you are told that if this happens, then this is, go to the manual. Even fixing a fence post, you have to go to the manual. Now, the manual gives you the length of fencing and the height of the post. But if there's changes, if you have to go into a valley, how do you treat that? So our people had to be trained how to, do that. So I do agree with you, but yes, the human side of things is quite important. Now, safety and security of our operations. Safety has to do obviously with preventing injury and harm. Then there is the security aspect, which means that we have to protect the infrastructure. Now, I have in my panel here as well, service providers in the private sector. So I'll start with maybe Maposa Shabana. How do we sort out security issues? What have you as Penco? What is it that you have observed? Thank you very much, Chair.
So as the suppliers, we see these things again that we are touching. Some of it touches our and over products that we supply. For instance, there's one to say that is the supplier fastening systems and as well as anything that deals with either left and holes, like maybe the efficacy product that again touches us in the sense that the safety, the respectability, stability of the system that we are trying to make sure that we service that to the customers so that the clients can run. And the customers themselves can enhance because the productivity through the system is running. For instance, if I may just touch in terms of innovations, what our side have done, for instance, is like almost, I think in all certain countries, there is that fact of the fastening systems, starting with the anti-barter to the anti-sabotage, which I think in the jurisdiction that has to come to address that. And right now we are with the anti-theft system. One problem that we've got is that there isn't that kind of collaborative or adoption of these technologies. And that's a concern to us. And that's why the need to say it is much more cheaper in terms of technical cost. When that now you don't have to keep on in your corrective maintenance if you get to that. So I think this one to cover the system operations and to always replace this product if there is anything that is a deterrent to the one that has been stolen. So that's why the we see the operators and those that are fixing trends the must be to see if I was going to your course as one way saying that there is a particular trend that suggests that okay, this product is a hotspot. Why wouldn't you then seek innovative technologies? For instance, in our case, it would be either anti-sabotage. I think SARA has adopted that, which is very good, and we haven't yet had some comebacks in terms of that properly. But we are on a situation. And there are some countries, of course, that are showing interest to our anti-theft system. So theft is preventable, it is preventable, and we're saying that if there are those kinds of products, going forward, maybe for me not take much more time, I would say we would like some kind of cooperation and collaborative with the suppliers in terms of making this things out and checking whether or not we are saving costs and there is much more focus in terms of resource utilization. Because surely the life cycle of the asset in terms of maintenance it will be prolonged because again we're getting that return on the asset because you don't have to fix now and again.
Well, thanks, Mr. Shabala. I think it still goes back to this interaction with the supplier and your client, and just coming up with these resourceful ways of ensuring that these problems won't happen. Now, this one thing is that security and cargo insurance go hand in hand. And so, the cargo that we send through customers from destination, from origin to destination, there should be any change happening along the way. So some of these issues of securing cargo, I know there's innovation, but you want to share with us?
Sure. I think the three elements that John mentioned, which are infrastructure, we have partnered with a Swedish company called and we have sensors that are mounted and installed on each of the buildings. And they also talk to not just in terms of tracking tracks, but they also provide information in terms of what the weight sensing as well. As opposed to customers that are currently doing a POC of concept here in South Africa, they have coal. And the coal does get degraded somewhere. Coal, it could fuel where you have fuel losses. The weight sensors will pick up when the train consists is moving slowly or it's stationary. It will pick up from the driver whether the driver is actually driving, talking to the human element, whether the driver is driving beyond the specific restriction. So you can manage the driver, you can monitor and discipline the driver, but most importantly, customers really want these sensors because they now will have information in terms of where the cargo is. Operators, as an operator myself, we always struggle. We'd have conferences in the morning, midday, and evening. The versions of the truth change from what the yard says and where the train is. Drivers drive distances on their own without any monitor. Some of the railways use cell phones to see where the driver is. So these sensors will give the location from coordinates at any number of minutes. So what we're doing now with the POC is we're actually giving information every 10 minutes. We can give it a minute. And the latest invention, because there are issues with batteries, so this information goes via SIM cards onto the cloud, and we have batteries because these PMUs or these sensors now have solar as well, so that we don't lose the battery life of these sensors. So what it actually does is this driver behavior that is managed. There's also the wheel flats where you can actually take out a wagon. You can have derailment alerts so you know which wagon needs to be taken out. And productivity is improved because you're not taking out wagons in distance. You're taking out wagons because it picks out that the wagon actually needs to be taken out, but not the rest of the 100 wagons because it's covered distance. But just one wagon needs to be maintained. And the same sensors are able to pick on the track if there's any changes in the formation, in the structure. So what it does is it's a very simplistic way because in the southern region, we really have a problem in that we are struggling just to run train. We're struggling just to have the interface where information can be shared between the customer, the operators, between 2 or 3 countries have the same information and they can be able to plan and execute trains, and there can be transparency between all the operators. But most importantly, there can be transparency within the railways because as managers, we all know that most of you here, what we told government is not what is actually going on.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid, Mulani, you've already made your presentation. VNE is responsible. All the rolling stock runs on your components. So what's your contribution to safety?
Okay, so thank you for the question. I think you mentioned extensively the need for investment in human capital. But what I would say is that it's not only human capital. What is key here is a serious investment in preventative maintenance. And I tell you why. The single biggest cause of train delays are faulty turnouts. I think that's the first thing that we've got to bear in mind. And in the context of safety, I think nothing beats maintenance from 2 perspectives. In the first instance, when you take a turnout, if you just look at the global statistics, for example, in Austria, a turnout that is regularly maintained will give you a life of 25 years, in excess of 25 years. Whereas if you look at Egypt, where we have a small turnout manufacturing facility, because the turnouts there are not maintained, the life of that turnout is never in excess of 5 years. Moving down to South Africa, since the reduction in spend on maintenance, we have seen the lifespan of turnouts reduced to no more than 6 years. So I can't emphasize sufficiently the importance of maintaining and refurbishing these turnouts using milling technology on a regular basis. I think that's the first point I'd like to make. The second point I'd like to make, which goes hand in glove with preventative, with the maintenance of turnouts using on-track machines like milling machines, is the use of technology. So in that respect, we have equipment that is mounted onto the track, which measures the condition of the turnouts. And what that does is it enables us to be able to plan for the maintenance of turnouts in a timely manner that enables us to then plan for budgeting and so on and so forth. Now, those two elements that go hand in glove. I'm not going to make too much of this from a safety perspective.
So thank you very much, my panelists. There's a lot more that we can discuss and share, but it is quite clear to me that we have to make sure that we train our people, we train them very well. And then also there is a good interface between what the technology, what it is meant to do, and the people that we introduce this technology to. Because Latra did mention ETCS, introduction of ETCS, but there's cases where people do not even understand that how it is meant to help them and run operations safely. Then obviously the issue of tracking and nice things which will help the customer get their cargo intact. Those are quite important in ensuring that this whole system is functional. I think the last point on maintenance, you're absolutely right. There's been a lot of underinvestment. It's like if you have a loan in your backyard, right? If you cut it, you can use a lawnmower, hovering, to leave the grass, then eventually you find that you have to get a streamer. Now, if you leave it, that means that you have to get a chainsaw because the trees have grown. It's more expensive. So I think the key thing here is what we can go away with from this is that let's invest in our people. Let us make sure that what we introduce people understand. And then let us not skimp on investment. If we invest a little bit on the infrastructure, the rolling stock that we have, we'll save spending a lot more in maintenance. Thank you, my distinguished panelists. Ladies and gentlemen,